Hello everybody, my name's James, and for the benefit of those listening back to the audio, you're listening to Ask James, my regular YouTube live stream, where I welcome questions from the YouTube community on anything football related. To timestamp this, it's just gone past 3 p.m. UK time on Wednesday, June the 18th. Exciting day for all us football fans and I guess FPL nerds with the fixtures released this morning. It's the first bit of content I put out where I changed the calendar to say 2025-26 season. As per usual, I'll be going through questions in order of submission. I've got nothing particularly I want to announce other than Tottenham appear right near the top of my ticker across the first 7 game weeks. So our start the season is not too bad. I'm sure there will be some fixture questions in the chat. As usual, guys, ask anything that you would like. I will cover up until 4 p.m. UK time or sooner if I get through all the questions before then. Greg is up first. Says, afternoon, James. I'm interested to know what the home and away rotation pairings are this season, if you're aware. Great, brilliant. I'm done for straight away, mate. Not got a clue. Not looked at it yet, mate. I've certainly not drilled into home versus away in terms of pairings and looking at what 4.5 defenders we might consider under which sort of circumstance. Probably by the end of today, I will know that answer. I don't know it at the moment. You will get the obvious pairings, the derbies, the Tottenham, Arsenal, Newcastle, Sunderland, Liverpool, Everton, United City. They'll obviously all be paired. I don't know the rest of the 12 teams, just having a glance now. Maybe Chelsea and West Ham might be paired, for example. But I've not looked into it in terms of the detail. But I would say because they're probably paired with Newcastle, you probably won't be looking at Sunderland from a home rotation, I would say. If anyone's in the chat and knows the obvious answers, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll cover before the end of the stream. CMP says, hey James, with game at 6 to 8, a usual time people target for first wildcard, which teams do you think make sense to target right at the beginning of the season? Thanks for the summer content. So, look, I've not looked... I've looked through every team's fixtures today and nothing getting feedback from fans. Nothing has stood out as particularly terrible across the whole season. There are some people who don't like their starts, there are other people who don't like their finishes, etc. The one that stood out to me massively was Burnley. My goodness, have got a really rough start. That's the one that stood out to me most. And I think of the big clubs, kind of well documented. You know, Arsenal got trips to United, Liverpool, and Newcastle was their first 3 away games, and also got a home game with Manchester City in there. But no one seems too unhappy. Everyone's got the same 38 fixtures, essentially, haven't they? Just some land with better starts than others. I think for people who want to kick on and improve their season, a positive start is useful. So for me, selfishly, I've got Tottenham sitting second on my ticker across the first 7 fixtures. I do think that's landed quite nicely for us with a new manager, and after the previous league season we obviously no doubt want to start particularly well. In terms of that, I mean, across the first 7, it's not great. Like the teams I've got at the top of the ticker, the one team I've got above Tottenham across the first 7 is Aston Villa. I think they've got the best start of all. We'll start with Newcastle, very challenging game, but I think that's their toughest fixture, the opening 7. Newcastle, Brentford, Palace, Everton, Sunderland, Fulham, Burnley is their first 7, with 4 of those 3 at home. The away games being Brentford, Everton and Sunderland. Like, I think that's a really good start. Sunderland show up really well. Across the first 3, they've got the best opening 3, I would say, by distance. I've also got them top across the opening 4 and opening 5 as well, Sunderland. I think Forest have got a pretty good start is across that opening 7. Some tough games, Arsenal and Newcastle away, but otherwise good start. I think Everton, good start as well, bar sort of the Merseyside derby away in game week 5. Bournemouth start at Liverpool, but then a pretty good run of fixtures, I'd say, sort of 2 through to game week 7. Manchester City, I think, is not too bad for a start either. So maybe you want to get off those teams, and maybe it switches back afterwards. You look at things like, for example, in game week 7, Chelsea and Liverpool playing each other. Maybe after that point, you'll want to go and target better runs for Chelsea and Liverpool, for example. I think people are drawn to want to wildcard during the international breaks. Just there's a 2-week period to think about things. It doesn't make difference in terms of the amount of price rises you'll get. After the first couple of days, it always kind of flattens out. But I suppose sort of game weeks 3 and 7 may be popular because of the international breaks. People obviously want a fast start, so targeting the fixtures is essentially all we've got to go on. At the start of the season, people can look at data from previous seasons. There's certain teams you have to ignore that from. Tottenham and Brentford will be two examples of that. But with other clubs like Villa maybe perhaps not a club that's going to be that busy in the transfer window. You could certainly look at their data from last season as it would stand at the moment, for example, but it obviously depends on the business in the transfer window. Some of us will be looking at wildcard game week 2. My reaction is on the opening day fixtures. It doesn't appeal fantastic in terms of the idea of bench boost in game week 1 and wildcard in game week 2, but I want to do a little bit more investigating into that, because anyone who wildcards game week 2 has got to make that team last until January at the earliest, and possibly longer. So I don't think it's appeared great for that. Obviously, I've not looked yet in terms of who's got best run of fixtures from game week 6 onwards or game week 8 onwards. But in terms of the teams to target at the start of the season, if you're looking to wildcard around about that period, it's the list of teams I give you. And I think Villa would probably be right at the top of that, actually. Gavin Richardson says, not many trains south after 9:30, 10 o'clock from Newcastle. Will you and your dad be getting a twin Airbnb? Some awful midweek game journeys this year, but not for us for once yet. I think Newcastle's the only midweek away game we've got that's far. I mean, well, Bournemouth is another one we'd have to stay, but I probably won't get a ticket as per usual at their little ground. Depends how it works out, but I imagine if I end up going to Newcastle away for that midweek journey, yes, I probably will be staying up. Mind you, I don't need an excuse to stay up in Newcastle anyway. Stayed up the night before the game last year. Gavin says, can Frank overcome the Levy effect and perhaps move Spurs forward this year? Extra fixtures can strain non-established teams to need a big window, 4 to 5 quality additions, in my opinion. Yeah, I think it doesn't matter in terms of the first 3 weeks of the season. And actually, there's arguably a little benefit to the European clubs in the sense they don't have the Carabao Cup tie. Obviously, Forest will have European games for their Conference League playoff, assuming it is still them, assuming Crystal Palace stay in the Europa League. But obviously, from game week 4 onwards, European fixtures obviously come into play from that midweek after game week 4. But like to Newcastle, and I would throw Chelsea into that as well, it's difficult to know what the adaptation will be for those two sides. We know Newcastle in the 23-24 season struggled to marry up the playing 3 times a week. Not helped by a horrendous injury list, it's worth saying. How does Maresca's style scale up to playing 3 big games a week? We know, obviously, yes, they had European football last season, but effectively were able to pick a second string team throughout the majority of the Conference League, or at least rotate without major issues. So for Newcastle and Chelsea, an adjustment. For Villa, there's the adjustment of, I think, the speed of turnarounds. And we know that last year Villa had problems with games after European fixtures up until sorting in first half of the season. And the major problems they had were the 3-day turnaround games. Now, the Thursday, Sunday, you're going to get that. For a club like Palace, that's obviously is a huge jump. Palace don't rotate their team much. So with a side like them, we know Glasner like to go strong in the cups anyway. Does he pick a very similar side, Sunday, Thursday, Sunday, for example? And Tottenham obviously fall into that category for very different reasons to last year. The majority of the squad will be used to it, but obviously the squad couldn't manage it last year. So I think Thomas Frank's style was obviously very different to Angie's, but we've got nothing to go on in terms of Thomas Frank's experience of managing a club in Europe. Can Frank overcome the Levy effect? What's the Levy effect, Gavin? What is that? Daniel Levy told me last night Tottenham need to win the league. Obviously not this season, but that's an objective. He's never said that before. What is the Daniel Levy effect? What is that? Is that not buying, top level players? Is that what it is? We're not going to break our wage structure. I was really consistent when I said this on stream last Friday when it was kind of breaking. It was, Tottenham are in for Bumo. And I was very clear. I was like, Tottenham won't sign Bumo. He's going to earn a far bigger salary at Manchester United. So Tottenham spending money on transfers is not a problem. It's the scalability of getting the players up in terms of the salaries. It means Tottenham are a layer below the top level in terms of the players they're targeting until that changes. And they're always going to be playing catch up, right? Is that what you mean by the Daniel Levy effect? What is the Daniel Levy effect in terms of managers? Because I'll say what I've pretty much always said. Pretty much every manager that Daniel Levy has sacked, he's been correct to sack. Now, the majority of those appointments, I'd say probably 80% of them have been bad appointments. But in terms of the dismissals of them, I don't look back on any Tottenham dismissal and think, actually, you were particularly unlucky. Even Pochettino, when he went, I think he'd lost the players. Harry Redknapp's the last few months, when we missed out in the Champions League, was horrendous. Martin Jones' Tottenham could not defend any longer. Pretty much everyone is dismissed. Conte went mad. Every manager he's dismissed, he's pretty much been correct when he's done it. And most would have sacked Ange months ago, and he didn't. Lukey Boy 123 says, "Hi James, I'm not sure if you've had time to look yet, but do you think Liverpool's fixtures have fallen well? Thanks for these streams today, mate." I don't have them as great in terms of the start. I mean, Newcastle and Arsenal inside the first three fixtures is obviously tough. The opening day game against Bournemouth is a challenge. So the one thing you know about Andoni Iraola's team is obviously incredible fitness levels, and there's every chance they may well start the season strong. There's obviously going to be an impact for them in terms of some of the players they're losing. I'm sure they'll add new additions. Not ideal for Bournemouth to go to Liverpool opening day, clearly. Newcastle game week 2 and Arsenal game week 3. Listen, could quickly get away from Liverpool. Across the first 7, obviously go to Chelsea in game week 7 as well. Palace away, not easy, game week 6. Merseyside derby, game week 5. It's a very challenging start for Liverpool. But the general vibe I had from Liverpool fans this morning was pretty happy with the fixtures. I think quite happy with the run-in, very importantly. I think for those who want to win the league, arguably they look at the run-ins more than the starts, because you think, right, in the run-in we might have to win 8-9 games in a row, for example. I think Liverpool fans seemed quite happy with their run-in from what I could make out this morning. So yeah, I mean, look, for the strongest sides, it doesn't matter so much. And I guess as well, I don't think Liverpool fans would be looking at it and going, City start's incredible. Like, Liverpool can look at it and go, well, Arsenal and Man City playing each other in game week 5. They can't both win their opening 5 games, for example. And Arsenal obviously have a very challenging start. So Liverpool may even be able to drop points across the first 5 and still be ahead of those two teams, for example. So I think they've landed okay. Mike Parsons says, "Good afternoon, James. Hope all is well. What do you reckon Wolves' chances are for survival next season? We seem to be selling and not replacing." Forgive me, I forget the name, but I know there's a deal was announced either late last night or earlier this morning. Certainly in terms of the media ITKs, that there's a new player incoming. I don't know anything about it. It was about 25 million fee, I think. I don't know anything about the player. That's always the concern with Wolves, that they sell their players. And I think Wolves fans feel like they've been hard done by a little bit with the fees they've got for Cunha and Ait-Nouri, kind of combined being under 100 million, feels on the thin side. The concern with the Fossen group is, will they reinvest the money correctly into that football club? And it would obviously be a shame not to, because Vitor Pereira did outstanding work at having taken over from Gary O'Neill. I think my concern for Wolves would be, and I said this on a different bit of content this week, you've lost Cunha, Ait-Nouri. Replacing that's going to be really challenging and difficult. If they lost, say, João Gomez as well, who might think, hang on a minute, and he's top level in my opinion, and then something happened to Andre, or Andre went and then João Gomez got injured. If you're taking those two midfield players out on top of Cunha, Ait-Nouri, then they're the most likely of the 17 remaining teams to go down, in my opinion. What if you took Larsson out? Larsson's pretty consistent as a 9 and will get them some decent goals. What if you took him out? Then you look at that squad now and you think, where's the goals? Now, we got to give them they've lost 2 high-profile players. We've got to give them the opportunity to see if they do replace them or not. But I know it's always a fear for Wolves fans. Will the money be reinvested into the squad? We will see. Gavin says, not many on yet, so I'll keep going. Sunderland were 200-1 not to win a league game all season. Could the derby record be under threat this year? Well, if they take 0 points from their first 3 games, yeah, possibly, because West Ham at home, Burnley away, Brentford at home, you couldn't really ask for much better in terms of an opening 3 set of fixtures than that to try and get points on the board, and then automatically it just begins to look tougher, doesn't it? Palace, Villa, Forest, United, it just gets tougher from there, right? But no, it's too early to talk about these things. You may have even probably, and I know it got close in the end, but I got this question a lot about Southampton last year, and I was like, they'll beat it. And I'm glad they did. I was consistent saying that they were much better than that Derby side. That we don't know what Sunderland are going to do in terms of the transfer window. Maybe they'll utilise the loan market really well. It is way too early to be having a sort of discussion about, can someone beat the worst points total? At the moment, I could only assume yes, they will, mate. Mark Dorney says, afternoon, what are your thoughts on the Vicario rumours? Think we have bigger issues, personally. Yes, I agree with you, Mark. We do have bigger issues than changing our goalkeeper at the moment. So, yeah, I've seen some Vicario to Milan rumours. I think it's possibly come about, and it may be that the problem Tottenham have is they don't have many sellable assets at the moment, or players that they'd actually want to sell that they'd get good money for. Tottenham would make a profit on what they got from what was a relatively cheap buy with Vicario. No, I mean the idea I saw someone suggest last night, it was a Tottenham fan, that yeah, sell him, play Kinski in goal, and just promote Austin as number 2 and don't do anything about it. I think it's, like, Kinski's not ready. The theory is that Kinski will be more suitable on the ball to how Thomas Frank wants to play, because I think his dinked chipped passing is of a far higher quality than Vicario. But I would personally want to see how Vicario plays distribution-wise in goal when he's actually able to pass to his fullbacks. Because there's only 2 players Vicario can ever pass to, and it's his 2 centre-backs. So if he can't pass to his 2 centre-backs, he's often under immense pressure. Now, that's the old style. Now there will be a new style. And Frank likes that. Dinked balls into the fullbacks. He likes that. And that's where I think the theory comes around that Kinski would be better suited than Vicario. There is a lot more to goalkeepers than just dinked passing. And I think what we saw of Kinski, super talent, not ready to be Tottenham's number 1 yet, though, in my opinion. And if Tottenham sold Vicario, they need to replace Vicario, in my opinion. So, no, we've got bigger problems than that. And I think Vicario really splits opinion. I think many neutrals don't think he's good enough. That's fine. As many Tottenham fans don't think he's good enough. That's fine. I would certainly like to see him have a season with a different style of manager. And I definitely agree with you, Mark, that he's nowhere near our biggest problem. So I think now that Kinski's in, I mean, that was a bigger problem, the fact we didn't have a number 2 goalkeeper. Kinski as backup is fine. I wouldn't be looking to move Vicario on personally, unless there's some stupid bid. And I can't really truly believe that an AC Milan's going to come in with circa 40 million plus or something. I don't know why we'd want to change that personally. Hasselbank win, says James. Which player would be the litmus test for you to assess if a person has good knowledge of football? Either as in they rate that player or they don't rate that player. Litmus test of ball knowledge on a particular footballer. Moussa Dembele, maybe. It's a decent shout. I said to Nico last week, I said, I can't have serious conversations with people who think Ronaldo's better than Messi. I know some people are going to hate that, right? So that's my opinion. If you think Ronaldo's better, it doesn't mean you don't have ball knowledge. I think Moussa Dembele is a good shout. BHHH67 says, James, do you reckon there will be any impact from the Club World Cup on Chelsea and City? And do you think this will affect our game week 1 draft? Cheers. I don't think we can rule it out, okay? I think it probably would need one of the sides to get to the final, probably for it to even become a conversation. I said on the stream last week that we shouldn't rule it out. I think there's a couple of important things to factor in here. One, Sky have picked up Chelsea and City's games in game week 1, and they'll be loath to lose them. Very much so, right? We've got Man City in the 5:30 slot, and they ain't going to just want one game on their first Super Sunday. So I would say we're assuming that 95% plus those fixtures will stay. Also, as I said on the stream last Friday, the Premier League clubs don't really feel it's right that City or Chelsea get any advantage out of this. They are clearly disadvantaged for the start of the season because of having this Club World Cup. But the other 18 clubs very much view the fact that Chelsea and City are going to make a huge amount of money from this tournament. Therefore, that's the price they're paying essentially, and they're going to be disadvantaged at the start. So I don't think there's much interest from the rest of the Premier League to particularly help Chelsea and City out. If one of them got to the final and then it's sort of like 4-week turnaround and you're forced to give players 3 weeks holiday, forced to do that, then maybe is there then a conversation. But look, Paris Saint-Germain will play the Super Cup final against Tottenham 3 days before the Premier League season starts. And I think from those of us who watched PSG last week and over the last couple of months will think, yeah, there's every chance they'll go very deep in this competition. So PSG are going to play the Super Cup final 3 days before Man City play their first Premier League game. I would imagine it's highly, highly likely that we'll have 20 teams, playing game week 1. FPL Kratos says, hi James, hope you're well. I'm very excited to see Wirtz in a Liverpool shirt in the coming days. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but was curious to know how you think we'll use him. I've covered this a few times on various platforms. Forgive me if much of what I said might have been on Patreon. But I can certainly foresee a scenario because of Liverpool's signing of Frimpong, and also we know Milos Kerkez is kind of a near formality as well, that I think Florian Wirtz may well be used as the 9. Now, not always, I think it's important to say, but I tell you what, with those fixtures Liverpool got at the start, which is a really rough set of fixtures, I would not be surprised if we saw Wirtz and Szoboszlai play as kind of 10-9 hybrids, basically. With the idea of them dropping short and getting, say, Salah and Gakpo off the flanks and then pushing fullbacks further on. You still create a box within midfield. That would be my instinct for the more high-profile games. Easier run of fixtures, maybe, yes, you would have like a Jota as a 9 and Wirtz just plays as a 10. Could he operate in a wider role? Yes, though not, I think, ideal necessarily for Liverpool and how dynamic they are. But again, they've signed 2 fullbacks, or signing, because we know Kerkez will happen, who certainly want to push on. So to have a player, you know Salah's going to play off the right, and you know what Mo is. To have a player that would perhaps join in off the left, to join a box midfield from there and have Milos Kerkez really push forward, for example. Yep, we could see that as well. Multifunctional player can be used in a number of different attacking positions. I think, as I said, I think Liverpool probably have paid over the top in terms of the financial deal, but I don't think they should care about it either, because they believe he's a needle mover, i.e. you pay over the top for the very best if you can get it, and that's what Liverpool think they've done. Mark Dorney says, what should Salah and Haaland be price-wise, and what do you think they will be? What do I think? Salah like 17 and Haaland like 14.5. What will they be? I don't know if there's appetite to put Mo Salah at 15, personally. And you have to factor, he's going to miss probably 5 games or so because of AFCON. Remember, AFCON starts 20th of December this season. So he's going to miss the Christmas period. I couldn't believe when I saw, what's the first game Salah's going to miss? Tottenham away. Couldn't believe it. Whether that has any impact, I don't know. What price will they be? Well, Salah's got to be priced more, hasn't he, based on last season? I think the two of them have still got to be really high. Because I think as well, like when Salah goes to AFCON, for example, over that Christmas period, I did glance at City's fixtures this morning over the Christmas period, pretty strong. So when Salah goes to AFCON, Haaland's going to be in nearly every team. We've got to do stuff to try and force that not to happen, really. So I'd still have them both really high. I think, I don't know, 14.5, 13.5, something like that, maybe. I can't see it's going to be much more than that, personally. But I don't know, those who are regularly into the predicting of players, I don't know what they're kind of marketing it at the moment. I don't think either of those players can be much less than that, really. Next up is FPL Borat. Says, hi James, with the fixtures dropping, has it given you any indication of bench boost in game week 1? I know it's so early and the game hasn't launched yet, but have you had any early thoughts? Yeah, I tell you what I can say. I did a simulation for advanced tier patrons last week, a kind of a hypothetical fixture list done randomized, and you might have seen a short I did with a potential bench boost team. Yeah, that set of fixtures was better for game week 1 than what it's landed with. That's not great because the targeting of the 3 promoted teams doesn't feel great. I think Tottenham players against Burnley, fine. And you may not want like a treble Tottenham moving on, particularly with Man City away the next week. But then I said Tottenham's fixture run 3-7 is pretty good. So Tottenham assets may well be of interest at the start of the season. So you may not even want to bin them. Do I want to go heavy for Everton against Leeds? How am I going to feel about City assets and getting the right ones playing against Wolves? Well, the only one I trust to definitely start is Haaland. So the bench boost, I want 15 starters. Chelsea got a decent fixture. It could be similar problems, right? And other than Jared Bowen, like how much interest have I got in West Ham, where it's Sunderland? No, the answer is it's not great. I would be very honest and say I want to do it. And over the last 2 seasons, I ended up doing it, but didn't prior to the fixtures think that's what I wanted to do. It landed very close towards the deadline in game week 1, but sort of like on the Monday before, I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. This is what I've decided after the final friendlies. Whereas last year after the fixtures was pretty set after that point. I was like, yeah, this is... You got to think and remember how it landed last year, right? Liverpool had Ipswich, okay? Tottenham were at Leicester. Newcastle had Southampton at home. So you had 3 of... remember at that time, Tottenham... A lot of people think Tottenham sort of 4th, 5th, believe it or not, going into last season. Newcastle would have been favoured top 6 as well. So Liverpool, Newcastle, Tottenham, all favoured to finish in the top 6, all had promoted clubs. Plus, you had Arsenal at home to Wolves, who many thought would be the closest, most in danger of going down, right? So you had 4 of the expected top 6 playing the expected bottom 4. Like, it has not landed like that this time. Much more difficult. What I need to have a look at, which I haven't had time to do yet, is look at sort of like game week 2 onwards. What would I maybe do if I was wildcarding game week 2? What's the jump? Do I need to wildcard? Is there a team that I'd be comfortable bench boosting game week 1 and then carrying on with? Like, i.e., for example, just benching those Tottenham players at Manchester City in game week 2, because Tottenham never do well at the Etihad, right? So there's plenty to assess, but my initial reaction is not great. But I did have a look at the fixtures that might create sort of doubles and stuff, and I don't think it's going to look great either to hold on to towards the end of the season either, which is kind of, I'd really stressed that going into last season as well. So yeah, look, time to assess, you're quite right, really early on. It will definitely need, because as well, I would say at this moment, you're probably going Haaland, Salah, probably top 2 for captaincy game week 1, probably. Certainly without kind of having a recognised Tottenham player at this moment. Are we going to captain Jared Bowen at Sunderland game week 1? Probably not. But there isn't anything that you'd have huge confidence in from the others, like Watkins against Isak. It's not that, is it? So that really helped last year as well for me in terms of bench boost in game week 1. Remember, I took on Salah and Haaland, right? Because I was convinced that Alexander Isak was the best captaincy in game week 1. And he was, 8.5 or so. So that was my highest priced player. I took Saka as well. But Isak, I thought, was top captaincy. I'm going to do bench boost and ignore Salah and Haaland. More likely, I'm trying to put them both in the way it looks at the moment. So it doesn't look great. So I need to assess it properly. The worst thing I think I could do, if I still think it's right, I still think it's right. But the worst thing I think I could do is like, oh yeah, I've done that the last 2 years. That was what worked. And overlooking the fixture and going, yeah, I just want to get rid of it. And there's different ways to skin it. And I need to look through all the fixtures, see if there's perhaps something else that could be developed that might be interesting. CMP says, popping back in to say, I love the 2 fan view podcasts this week. Really interesting listeners. Thank you. I'm glad. A little bit different for us not to do feature podcasts at the start of the week. Obviously, we're going to have a more detailed look at the fixtures and what that may mean on Friday's podcast. Myself and Sudge will be doing that together. I've got Club World Cup tomorrow. So yeah, the 2 fan view podcasts are out. They kind of won't date too quickly. So if you want to catch up with Ricky on Tottenham or Rory on Crystal Palace, looking at the cup successes, what's next for Tottenham, Palace's kind of network of ownership, which might deny them European football. Those are freely available to go back and listen to when you're ready. Thank you. Greg says, second mention of Moussa Dembele. Is Moussa Dembele in your all-time top 5 Spurs midfielders? And you have to be careful here, Greg. When we say all-time, I can't go backwards beyond Gascoigne, really, right? So in terms of central midfielders, and I'm going to assume that's what you're referring to, for me, top 3, Gascoigne, Modric, Dembele. I'd struggle to get 4 and 5, I think. I'd be tempted to stick Michael Carrick in there despite only having 18 months of us. Yeah, Dembele, Modric, Gascoigne, the easiest midfield 3 I could pick if I was putting together a favourite Tottenham team of mine. But I can't go back to Hoddle and your Martin Peters and the great players from the 60s, etc. Not in terms of fair comparisons. Andrew Parker says, am I the only one who didn't realise there was no Boxing Day games this year? Was this down to Amazon not having the games and Sky not wanting to show on that day, or player welfare related? Question. I wouldn't think so. I would say there's a little tiny gap in the scheduling there where the Boxing Day is the Friday, Christmas Eve is the Wednesday. If something happened where there's a calls for postponements, you could potentially use that Tuesday the 23rd date. It's a possibility that needs something beyond expectation to happen, but it might be even something where Nottingham Forest, for example, match day 6 of the Conference League, final group games, same as what would have happened to Chelsea last year, is also scheduled to clash with the Carabao Cup quarterfinals. Could Forest have a scenario where maybe the quarterfinal was moved to the Tuesday the following week? It might not help them that much because they'd still have a Thursday, Sunday, Tuesday schedule, and the other way around would probably be Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. But I think it might have to be Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, which is particularly bad. That would only be an event if Forest got to the Carabao Cup quarterfinal. But that date might need to be used. Now, if the 23rd gets used under that circumstance, you could think, yeah, make Forest play the 27th. I would imagine it's highly likely that some games would be brought forward from the 27th to the 26th. That's what I would expect. So I wouldn't rule out the possibility of Boxing Day fixtures happening. Richard Saunders-Irving wants to wish everyone a good afternoon. I hope you're well, Richard. Gavin Richardson says, already looking forward to cliche images of Sunderland kids bawling their eyes out when they get relegated. Would you be like that with Arsenal? Be honest. Would I be bawling my eyes out if Arsenal got relegated? No, mate. I'd probably be cheering, wouldn't I? Right? I wouldn't be doing a parade for it. Not quite sure I understand the question, Gavin. I'd say I'd miss the games with Arsenal. I wouldn't, but the rivalry is healthy, right? It's healthy to have a good rivalry. John Ejuglu says, I have triple Spurs in my first draft. Am I crazy? Porro, Johnson, Vicario. Well, said earlier, Vicario has been linked with moves elsewhere. With Brennan Johnson, you have to factor in that there's a lot of competition. Dan Kulusevski won't be available game week 1, but we know Tottenham have been linked with the likes of Bumo, Antoine Semenyo, Mohamed Kudus name has come up today. Tottenham still have Heung-min Son, although I think he'll probably leave towards the end of the window, by the way. I've explained why on Patreon today. You've got Matisse Tell signed, you've got Wilson Odobert, you've got Manor Solomon, Mikey Moore might be injured, we haven't got clarity on that yet. A lot of competition actually in the wide areas, so there's a danger there. Would Brennan Johnson be a definite starter? I watched pre-season last year, and by a mile, Tottenham's best player in pre-season last year was Dan Kulusevski, and then didn't start game week 1. So I would say to you, Brennan Johnson is a dangerous pick at this moment. Pedro Porro should not be, and I think I said this. It might have been Monday's pod with Ricky, I can't remember, but I said it in one pod, he kind of really needs to be in at 5.5 Porro, because I think with the fixtures Tottenham have got now, if he's 5 million, he'd be in everyone's team, I think. So, and I felt he probably had to be 5.5 anyway, that even more so now with the fixtures. If he comes in at 5, which would be understandable based on his returns and Tottenham's performance last season, you could understand it. He's got to be 5.5 really, and I said that earlier about Daniel Munoz, and Munoz has got rough fixtures, so it could even be it's Porro, and then when Tottenham's fixtures get rougher, it's move on to them Munoz. I think that I can already see that where Palace have got a tricky kind of start, it gets better for them and then it gets harder for Tottenham. You can almost see that as a pathway transfer sort of in late October, early November, for example. And again, people might wildcard, as mentioned earlier, around about that point. So Porro definitely. Vicario, there's no real reason for me to think that he wouldn't be number 1. But you want to sit with me and try having double Tottenham defensive, mate. It's probably not advisable. The other thing is, what are you going to do with those 3 players, Man City away, game 2? Okay, so we never win at the Etihad. Gavin said, how many pathetic outbursts will Arteta have this? God, you've really got it in for them today, haven't you, Gavin? It's the Bulls' fault. It's a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. He's such a melt. I mean, I noticed, I don't know if anyone else noticed, that since Thomas Frank's moved to Tottenham, Mikel Arteta is now the second longest serving manager in the Premier League. It's another second. Cloud Sky Fantasy Football Show says, afternoon, James. We'll see more Sunday 2 p.m. TV games than usual, assuming another game is on main event. Do you think the extra matches go on another Sky channel or plus on Red Button? It's probably going to be a Red Button job here, I think, isn't it? Or the Sky Sports Plus channel. I think it probably depends on other leagues as well, maybe, Ian. So if they ended up with 2 that were quite high profile, I wouldn't be surprised if one's on main event and one's on Sky Sports Premier League, for example. Difficult to say or know at this moment, but I suspect probably Sky Sports Plus. You'd know more about that than me anyway. BHHH67 says, is it normal for teams Liverpool to have both their first and last games at home? I always thought it was one or the other. No, it occurs a lot. I mean, we had a real run for a number of years where we always were away first and away last. It seems to happen nearly every year for ages, and it's now spun back the other way for us now. We've obviously got both game week 1 and game week 38 at home this season. Let's be at home game 1 last season. Struggling to remember now. No, it was at Leicester, wasn't it? But we had the last day at home last season. Yeah, no, it's not uncommon at all, mate. It's not uncommon at all. Harry Baker says, hi, James. As a Chelsea fan, can't help feeling the media has been overly negative about us since Bolly, etc. took over. Do you think it's warranted, or should more credit be given for the top 4 finish? Okay. There's a couple of sides to this, and I'll try and do both. Right. From a neutral's perspective, generally, Chelsea finishing 4th with the volume spent on transfer fees is not something that many neutrals think should particularly be celebrated. I'd caveat that by saying, obviously, the age profile of the squad is obviously very, very young, right? It's hopes that they'll develop together. There wasn't an aim to try and win the title last season, for etc. But you'll have to understand the criticism that will come on the outside, right? It's a conversation I've had with Clayton many times about fans feeling like they're kind of, and I'm not saying you're necessarily saying this, but fans feeling like they're personally attacked. My team gets criticised more in the media. It's what like the majority of football fans think, that their club is being targeted or victimised more. And there'll be people listening or watching this and going, yeah, my club is. It's probably not. It's probably how you consume your content and then what you see on the outside, right? And your kind of unconscious biases about how you feel about your club. So I could say, people keep banging on about Tottenham not won a trophy, Spurs, Spursy, all this, right? People will find something else to have a dig at Tottenham about, right? But it's happening elsewhere. Gavin's digging at Arsenal, right? I've just made a joke about Arteta finishing 2nd, etc., right? I make the joke now because I've got a moment where I can celebrate for my team and it doesn't happen that much. So everybody feels like they're getting personally attacked at certain stages, right? Palace fans, imagine how they feel at the moment, right? All these other multi-club clubs allowed in, but we're not, right? Okay, look into the detail. It's actually understandable a little bit why there's some confliction here. Forest fans feel like Marinakis gets attacked, right? And you go, Palace, Forest aren't two of the biggest clubs in the league. Trust me, every single fan thinks that at a certain point, their club, or most, will feel like their club's being victimised or targeted, right? So my answer to you, Harry, will be, as a neutral, do I think that Chelsea should particularly celebrate finishing top 4? Of course, when you achieve it on the final day of the season, you have every right to enjoy that. But I also would say to you, you were 3rd in December and most of us thought you challenged for the title. So the end result from that in December, as discussed with Gary Mantle on the Fan View a couple of weeks ago, it's not something overly to be overjoyous about. And you as a Chelsea fan know, right? Your football club's going to ultimately get judged on winning trophies. You've won one this year. You finished top 4. Is a decent season. But that criticism is obviously going to be there because of the volume of money. Even though, yes, we can look at it and say, yeah, do you know what? A lot of young players have been brought there, etc., etc. On the money Chelsea has spent, if you just remove that, you arguably should be winning the league, mate. Charlie, 11575NNC Reapers says, hi, James. Do you think this season Salah and Haaland can be covered by the likes of Wirtz, Marmoush, etc.? Impossible to say at this moment. The instinct in me right this moment would say that Wirtz wouldn't cover Salah, other than he probably will do in December and January. Marmoush is really important in terms of how he's classified, position, and price. That would be a good carrot. But there's also a danger that if Marmoush is too cheap, that everyone just goes Salah and Marmoush. That's not necessarily ideal. Now, of course, what also happens with Marmoush, same as with Salah, is going to go with Mo for AFCON, right? So there's even more reason. Oh, fucking hell, Haaland. That's what I'm saying. You already thinking about December. That has to be a little bit of a factor in the pricing, I think. King of Mandalore says, what Spurs players do you think will excel under Frank from an FPL perspective? I think to go back to the point that the individual, sorry, I've forgotten who it was talking about Johnson earlier. Like, if you had to pin me now, yeah, Johnson's the one I would pick. I would say for those maybe looking at a game week 1 bench boost, Solanke might be a really good alternative, but I've not had the vibe or confidence yet to feel like he'll get excessive numbers for what he'll be priced at. He might have a dip this year in terms of pricing, but I doubt it, to be honest. So Johnson, well, the standout one is Porro, though. Yeah, that's the standout one, I think. Jack Flash says, would it be better or worse if price changes were 0.5 instead of 0.1? Huge drops and huge rises would make things more exciting. Plenty of pros and cons, of course. Yeah, I said this on a stream recently as well, that, yeah, sure, why not have players in at 4.7, 5.2, etc. at the start? Would create a nice talking point as well. And ultimately, we all end up with that, right? So why not just have it from the start? Greg says, smash a like, and why not check out Planet FPL Patreon? Well sold, Greg. Yeah, everyone smash a like, hit the sub button, truly be appreciated. Steve Ingram says, always give Steve Ingram's put in the pairings. Thank you, Steve. So it's Arsenal, Tottenham, Aston Villa, and Burnley, Brentford, and I actually I'm going to read this. Maybe there's something missing. Burnley, Brentford. Is it Brighton, Chelsea, Fulham, Palace, Wolves? Can't be Wolves, Liverpool, mate. Have you put space in? Okay, right. I think I've got this. Arsenal, Tottenham, Villa, Burnley. That's interesting. Brentford, Brighton. That could be a good one. Chelsea and Fulham. Crystal Palace and Wolves. Liverpool and Everton. City and United. Newcastle and Sunderland. Forest and Bournemouth. West Ham and Leeds. Those are the pairings. Thank you, Stephen. Harry Baker says, one more from me. Please tell me you hate this heat wave as much as I do. Cheers for the content. Was it last year or the year before it got up to like 37 degrees? Nowhere near this heat wave yet. Us Brits, anyway, we can't deal with the heat. I'm certainly one of them. But no, I don't even have a fan in here, mate. It's not too bad. Ishan Hall says, thoughts on going no Salah 1-3 and wildcarding him and Wirtz for game week 4 for Burnley away. Look, you're going to look at that opening Liverpool 3. Across the opening 3, I've got only Crystal Palace with a tougher opening set of 3 fixtures than Liverpool, right? So the idea of then coming back, wildcarding them in game week 4 into Burnley away, Everton at home, etc. Yeah, I get that. But what I would say is I wouldn't base that just around one team. So if there's others that make that worthwhile, I've not looked at it in enough detail yet, but if there's others there that make that worthwhile, sure, cool, why not? It's during the international break, etc. You've got time to make some decisions, etc. You can take Mo on for the first 3 weeks. Of course you can. I don't know if you want to take him on game week 1. Let's see. Dom Dewsbury says, hey, first FPL stream of the new season. Yes, James. Thank you, mate. Thomas Thornton says, what sort of price do you think Wirtz will be? I'm thinking a Salah Wirtz double up. Got a feeling he will be 9-ish. Salah at 14. Yeah, somewhere in that bracket. I'd probably be surprised if it's less than 9 because the figure coming with it, sort of 1 in 2, more better than a 1 in 2 for attacking returns. And obviously playing for one of the best teams in the world now as well. So yeah, 9.5, something like that. I think I would personally 10. Everything would be overpriced for me. Josh Davis says, hi mate, hope to bench boost in game week 1 with 4 Tottenham. Assuming they complete a Prem signing, but wonder if you have to play the chip or set captain before the player gets updated or if you can still tinker. So I went with 4 Tottenham in game week 1 last season, right? I had Porro, Kulusevski, Son and Solanke. Tottenham bought Solanke from Bournemouth on the Saturday, which is perfect because no one at FPL admin towers. Hi guys, no one does any work there on a Saturday night. And they didn't actually update Solanke even until the Monday lunchtime-ish, I think, as a Tottenham player. So I bought Solanke on the Saturday, sat there with 4 Tottenham players, didn't touch the team for a week. Could I still change captain, etc.? Yes, of course I could. But it was never moving off Alexander Isak, as I'd mentioned earlier. So, yeah, I could make changes to the team, but I couldn't make a transfer. So I was pretty much locked in, or if I wasn't going to be, I had to obviously remove a Tottenham player. So once 4 are in, if you then make a transfer, whatever transfer that is, it's not going to allow you to do it unless you remove one of the Tottenham players. You'd be lucky to have that sort of thing happen again. And let's be honest, Solanke went into the game as a bit of a doubt. I mean, it was swinging for the trees, wasn't it? Knowing that I'd probably wildcard very quickly out of it, and it was just targeting Leicester opening day. King of Mandalore says, thoughts on Forest writing to UEFA regarding Palace's situation, trying to get bumped up to the Europa League. Can understand the selfishness, but can't help but feel most non-top 6 clubs wouldn't do that. Careful, because I think that's the headline as how it was reported. What I understood from what I read is that Forest asked for clarifications of rules. That's it. But it was led down a line of, right, what does this mean for Palace? So the headline there is Forest complained about Palace. I'm not convinced that's exactly what happened. Harry Trimble says, hey James, do you know if the Premier League clubs get a heads up about fixtures before they are publicly announced? Will some be pissed with what they have? Example, United, Arsenal. I would guess, I mean, look, the first one, United and Arsenal, as the 4:30 Sunday game was leaked this morning at what, 10 to 8 or something. I imagine the Premier League clubs probably would have been given the information probably 7:30ish this morning or so, I would guess. I have no idea. For them to be ready for, obviously, their social media posts, etc., etc. They've got to be given some time to be able to put that together. It might even be that maybe wasn't even until 8. The people had the inside United Arsenal, might be, who knows, the people giving out that information. I have no idea. But yeah, they obviously don't get it at 9 o'clock. It's the same with Sky, right? You put Sky Sports News on at 9 o'clock, it's like, boom, there's the fixtures. Like, they need a little bit of heads up to put their own graphics together, and a time bar to obviously not release that situation, that information beforehand. Those who do it, it's interesting. Gavin says, Levy effect is 42% revenue on wages. Money could have been spent better, in my opinion. Yes, meant what you said. I think Frank could be a great manager for you. Yeah, he could be. Might be a bad one. Again, look, I'm not going to sit here and go, Thomas Frank will do this, that, and the other, or Thomas Frank won't do this, that, and the other. The knowing how the scalability from Brentford to Tottenham, complete unknown. Complete unknown. But I think most people think it's probably a sensible appointment. I think most people rate Thomas Frank. We just don't know. Ultimately, I had a conversation with Suj on Patreon today, saying like, and what I essentially said to Suj was, when I asked him straight out, was Daniel Levy said Tottenham need to win the league, not this season, but he said he in the interview last night, he said that it was very much about Tottenham having the ambition of not what they've achieved, but what they haven't achieved. He said it's the first time he's ever said it, to my knowledge, Tottenham need to win the league. He hasn't put a date on that, not by within 5 years, 10 years, where Tottenham need to win the league. I just want to see it once, right? So I'm pleased to hear that. But I said to Suj, right, with Tottenham need to win the league, do you think Thomas Frank's the guy to do it? And Suj said no. And I said, well, I agree with you. Because there's nothing there you could say, well, I think that's scalable where I know that Thomas Frank can deliver that. Maybe he can. Who knows? It seems like a sensible appointment. On the wage thing, this is why I was adamant about Mbeumo not joining Tottenham. He's not going to come in automatically as the highest earner and upset the whatever it is within the group where someone else is walking in. If you go and sign Messi and he walks in as the highest earner, you're like, okay, well, it's Messi. Brian Mbeumo is a great player. Brian Mbeumo should not be walking into Tottenham Hotspur as the highest earning player immediately. If he's good enough to become it, congrats, well done. You shouldn't be walking in instantly as the highest earning player. And that's inevitably pretty much what would happen. So, yeah, what Tottenham have got to do, they've got to scale it up. They've got to do it quite quickly, but you can't just go, well, Solanke's on 90 grand a week and we don't spend enough on wages, so let's give him 180. You're trying to push them up together. Lots of contract renewals. This is what Tottenham did originally with the likes of Kane, Dele Alli, Eric Dyer, Carl Walkers, Danny Rose, all these players. They all kept getting new contracts and regular bumps. That's what needs to happen with this group now, and I think that's what Tottenham are trying to do. Clearly, the 42% of revenue is a massive problem. But it's also a protection against, well, what happens if Tottenham do have a year where they don't qualify for European competition? And it very nearly happened. Off the back of having won a couple of years ago where we weren't in Europe. Cole Sliffer says, hi James, hope you're well. How important are the London derbies, excluding Arsenal Spurs fans? Are they just another game, or do you look for them in the fixture list? Yeah, I'd look for them. Yeah, Chelsea and West Ham. The others, no. I don't look for Palace or Fulham or Brentford. Chelsea and West Ham, you look for the dates, I think. But no real difference to when we playing United, City, Liverpool. I think Newcastle go into that category now as well. So you're looking for the biggest games. The first you're looking for is who's at the start, who's at the end, where's Arsenal. That's what's happening first. And then I think, yeah, there's an interest of when the Chelsea West Ham games are. But the other London clubs wouldn't come into thinking at all. It's no different to playing Burnley. Thomas says, looking forward to this season more than many. Cherky and Wirtz will make it more exciting for sure. Hopefully United get a bit better. Gavin says, smash that like yo. Will there be any New teams circling the drain this season. Brentford, new manager. Bournemouth getting raided. Wolves lost best 2 players. West Ham could have a shocker. Yeah, there's a number there that are kind of like what ifs. What happens to Brentford? What if Bournemouth and Wolves don't replace some of the players leaving? What happens to West Ham if Jared Bowen suffered a bad injury and Kudos left and Paquetá's unavailable? You'd be like, fucking hell, where's their goals, right? But what would happen to, what if Palace and Forest can't cope with playing twice a week, right? And then they suffer injuries as a consequence at the same time. I spoke about Glasner kind of picking a regular team all the time. No, I don't think Palace is going to be in any trouble whatsoever, right? There's a lot of what ifs. And a lot of that to do is that the 17 have established themselves, right? So it's difficult to foresee any of them going down. Danny Kirk says, do you think we could get more doubles this year due to the amount of teams in Europe? And the Premier League saying more fixtures could be moved at late notice due to this. No, it shouldn't particularly make a difference. I mean, essentially, what creates the doubles bar unexpected, like the win at Everton, Liverpool? What creates doubles, right? League Cup final will probably create 2 postponements, and the FA Cup semi-finals will probably create 4, and the FA Cup final will probably create 2. Right, it's 8 fixtures. Okay. Now, the FA Cup final fixtures obviously just stayed in the same week last year. We had in the FA Cup semi-finals, we had City and Villa playing each other, so then that became 3 fixtures rather than 4. Everton and Liverpool made up 1 extra that we weren't anticipating. I think that wording today was twofold. I think because the amount of teams in the Champions League predominantly, you think about it, 6 English teams in the Champions League. Right. Well, you've got Champions League fixtures. Let's sell one for you, right? So, game week. I'm trying to look here. Let's pick game week 4, right? In fact, that's a bad example. Yeah, no, that's a good example. Game week 4, right? Manchester derby, City against Manchester United. Okay. So there's every chance Sky would want that as the 4:30 on the Sunday, right? Right. Well, that's awkward because at the point that they'll need to arrange the fixture, you have no idea what day of the week City are going to play in the Champions League. No idea. So I think there's going to have to, there are going to be more provisions, right? And then part of them provisions might be like, right, okay, so if City play in the Champions League on a Tuesday, we'll move Nottingham Forest versus Arsenal into that slot instead, right? Well, what if Arsenal were also in that slot on the Tuesday? Now, that first week, you'll probably get 2 English teams on a Tuesday, 2 on a Wednesday, 2 on a Thursday. I think you might get multiple announcements where it'll be like 3 games and it'll be like, right, one of these is going to be 5:30 Saturday, one of these is going to be 8 o'clock Saturday, and one of these is going to be 4:30 Sunday, and we're not going to tell you which until the European draw is done. I think it could be more like that sort of scenario this year, which is shite, but it might be something like that. And I think it was also the warning of obviously what happened with the Villa-Liverpool fixture last year, which obviously could have happened with a couple of other fixtures subject to what got postponed. It was Fulham, Tottenham and Arsenal, Chelsea, wasn't it? Which ended up not being postponed. I think it's probably just more of a warning of that's probably going to happen again. That a game week 31 fixture at very short notice is probably going to get brought forward to game week 27, for example. I think it's probably the most likely. I'll look at that in the forthcoming days, etc. So I think it's more of that. And we from the FPL community should be aware, because we've all been saying it, we need to know that could happen next year. And I think we all do know now that could happen next year. I hope we do anyway. Next up is FPL Rubber Ducky. Do you think that considering what is available in the market and the price tag being placed on Forwards, 30 million for the lap was a very decent shot at nothing and is likely to be seen as a steal by Chelsea? Well, ultimately he had a release clause, so that's obviously why it was so cheap. There's no doubt if he was on the open market, he would have gone for a lot more than that, arguably even double. So I've spoke at my surprise, I've been open about it and said I'm surprised he chose Chelsea, because I think he's got a real competition to get in that team. He may breeze it. From Chelsea's perspective, brilliant signing, absolutely nothing to lose. Because even if he proves to be shit, you get your money back. And there's no reason to think he will be. I thought his cameo was very good the other day. Sean P. Casey says, still having PTSD from triple captain Saka last game of the season. Take a break, Sean. The Waddler GG says, hi James, what league position would you say would be an okay season and what would be a good season for Frank this year? We need to qualify for Europe, whatever that looks like at the end of the season. We need to make sure that we're in Europe for 26-27. however that's achieved. So if we finish 17th, win the Champions League, sign me up. Not going to happen, is it? We need to be in Europe for 26-27. We have to jump massively from where we finished in the league. I think raising expectations beyond that, so top 4, I think is unrealistic. It's not, it can't be achieved, by the way, because ultimately consistency will get you over that line, right? You hit 2 points per game, don't matter what the others do, you'll hit it. But I think that's too ambitious. You're asking Tottenham to double their points tally, right? And we know last year was a freak season, etc., etc. It could be that it's 5th again for Champions League places. Then, yeah, there's every chance, maybe. I don't think it's realistic to truly think Tottenham will finish in the top 5. But I think in the European places, yeah, we got to get back in the top 8. I think if Tottenham finished 8th and were really close to those ahead and it wasn't enough to even get a Conference League place, and you go, okay, I can see the progress. CMP says, any predictions for an FPL player that will be under 8 million but could finish top 5 in points? Probably a forward. I mean, if you could pick out like this year's Chris Wood, that's your guy, isn't it? So under 8 million, there's going to be loads of forwards going to be under. I mean, is Vista going to be 8 million? Larson at Wolves obviously isn't. Does Wood get that jump? Delap presumably will be under 8 million. What about João Pedro, subject to where he is? What does Arsenal's new for? I mean, if Arsenal bought Sesko, what price did he come in at, as an example? Don't know. Evan Nilsson at Bournemouth, maybe? I think it would probably be someone that could replicate what Wood did, and someone probably will. Finding that over the course of the season is not easy to guess at the start. One name under 8 million. Delap could be. Dom Dewsbury says Wirtz should probably be the same price as whatever Palmer will be set at. I think Palmer still needs to be in the 10 bracket at an absolute minimum. Personally, it'd be higher because I just think when he has his streaks. And let's be honest, he had pretty much a 9-month streak, basically. In fact, no, a 12-month streak. He's a 12, 13 million pound player. I don't think FPL should be dipping him too much. Really don't. And their start is strong. I'd say I've got Chelsea 3rd on my ticker across the opening 4. I don't think it's brilliant. And there's obviously 4 London derbies in there. But the lack of travel will probably be good for them off the back of the Club World Cup. Have some respect says, how much you reckon Salah and Haaland's price will be? Someone asked that earlier, my friends. I'm going to jump, but thank you for your question. Neil Kager says, thanks, James. Hit the like. Gavin says, if the time weird derby had to be moved to midweek, do you think away fans would be barred also? Did you know we refer to the Stadium of Shire as the dark place? No, I didn't, but I do now. And yes, fans will be allowed in, mate. It can't be that bad, mate, that you can't have fans there for a night game. And yes, the game could be postponed, I believe, if one of those two teams gets to the Carabao Cup final. I'm going to finish with, I can see Oliver Render's comment at the end. I'm going to finish with Oliver's comment. Gavin also says, bloody love Clash of Correspondence. Will there be a non-Patreon Clash of Correspondence week? If so, I'll be sharing with lots of footy mates. Clash of Correspondence is platinum podding, in my opinion. Enjoy the weekend, all the best, layers. So Clash of Correspondence will return after game week 1. There will be correspondent week August the 4th. So as per usual, I'll be doing a podcast with all 20 of our Premier League correspondents. It's highly likely to be Monday to Friday. So it'll be 4 podcasts a day, Monday to Friday. I'll try and keep them a bit shorter this year because I know we go on too much. But yeah, it'll be a good sort of 15 hours worth of content from the correspondence week beginning August the 4th. Then we'll have a bit of a break. It's not helped by me going to Udine for the Super Cup final the following week before game week 1. Although there'll be content, no doubt. And then, yeah, correspondent week. Clash of Correspondence will start up again ahead of game week 2. Matt Smith says, hello from California. Can I please be the Bradford City correspondent when we get promoted to the Premier League in 2 years? If you can write me an essay, Matt, as good as Spencer Barrowman did after Sunderland got promoted, then I'll consider it, mate. I have to check within my Patreon community first if I've got any Bradford fans in there. Oliver Render says, hi James, hope you're well. Few Arsenal fans complained about the start they've been given to next season. Premier League fixing fixtures or them lot whinging again. Yeah, okay. Look, last year, Arsenal's first 3 away games were Villa, who they beat. No one else beat at Villa Park all season. Tottenham game week 4, they won. And game week 5 was obviously Trossard, controversial red card, 2-2 draw at the Etihad. They nearly won as well. Here's the thing. If Arsenal do well in those fixtures, you might remember I made a comment last pre-season that if Arsenal were top the league after they went to Stamford Bridge, they'd win the league. And do you remember Mikel Arteta beating the ground in disdain as Arsenal missed a late chance? They wouldn't have gone top, ironically, but it was an important period where they needed to be in touch and it was just a little bit adrift, which didn't give them much room for error. Then you had things like the red card, the Saliba red card at Bournemouth, etc. If Arsenal do very well from their start, I mean, let's be honest, if Arsenal come out of, I'll say it now, if Arsenal come out of St James's Park after game week 6 and they're top of the league, they'll win it. They'll have got 3 of the toughest away games out of the way and also got City at home out of the way as well. So, look, if it goes really well, what an opportunity from there, right? Everyone's got the same 38 fixtures. Yes, I can see. I look across the first 7. I've got Tottenham second on my ticker and I've got Arsenal 19th. Yeah, that's how I've got it. But across all 38 games, they rank the same. Odd that, isn't it? Well, actually, Arsenal rank higher because they don't have to play themselves. Right, that's it, guys. We'll leave it there. Thanks very much to everybody who contributed in the chat. Smash a like. Hit the sub button. Suj and I will be having a chat about the Club World Cup and what we've made of the first round of games and news stories from that competition tomorrow. And then we'll have a deeper dive into the fixtures. Yes, Oliver, so then whinging. And then we'll have a deeper dive into the fixtures again on Friday. For the benefit of those listening to the audio, a 5-star review goes a really long way. And for you, cue music, please, man child.